Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Leslie and today I'm going to be doing the A to Z book tag. And I'm pulling it up right here. And down in the description box below I will reference the original post on that. The first one, author you've read the most books of, that would be Jane Austen. I've read 5 of her books in her Stephanie Plum series, and then I've also read the Metro Girl Motormouth series. And she's also got some individual books that I've read that are standalones, so she's the one I've read the most of. The Stephanie Plum series, I believe, is now up to like 27 books. So that would take me forever to get through. And by the 5th and 6th book, they were kind of starting to sound a little similar. So I've kind of moved on from Janet Ivanovich's books, but she's still a great author, and a lot of her stuff is very comical. So I recommend those if you have a hard time finding books that you like reading. Best sequel ever. The second book of Fortuna Sworn is called Restless Slumber. I was on the edge of my seat the entire time I was reading that book. I was like, I need to keep reading. I need to keep reading. And at the end, I was like, oh my god. And then, like, 2 pages later, I'm like, uh-oh. And then it's a cliffhanger. And I'm like, no! But it's a really good book set. And so if you ever have the chance to read Fortuna Sworn, you won't regret it. Especially if you love fae romance and action and revenge. Yeah, you would love it. Okay. Currently reading. So right now I'm reading like a lot of books. I am reading the Jane Austen novels. I previously read Pride and Prejudice, and I set it down, and so I'm still in that novel. It's been like a month or 2 since I've picked it up, but I'm now on Sense and Sensibility. I am still in the middle of the Mortal Instruments City of Bones. It was the same. I was like, this is a great book, and then I set it down and haven't touched it in 2 months. And I'm like, I do that a lot. I'll start a book and I'll get halfway through and I'll set it down, and it will be forever before I pick it up again. Still reading Diana Gabaldon's Outlander book number 4, Drums of Autumn. That one I am taking my time with. I am listening to it on audio while I'm reading it, and I'm annotating as I go. Like, I'm taking my time with these books. The Path of Alchemy for my required read for this month. Drink of choice while reading. Okay, so I drink a lot of things while I'm reading, but I mainly go to hot tea. And the tea that I am most fond of is Breakfast in Paris Stash Tea. It's like an Earl Grey tea, but they add in lavender, and it's so good. And I put some honey in it, and so good. E-reader or physical books. I believe I answered this one in my new to booktube tag. I prefer physical books, but because of space constraints and physical cumbersomeness of physical books, I have a lot of ebooks. Fictional character you would have dated in high school. Okay, so a couple of months ago, I would have answered this completely different. I would have said James Malcolm Mackenzie Frazier, but that's because I love a Celt, and you know, that's just me. But after reading Fortuna Sworn, I'm kind of like, I'd take a Colith. But, you know, I'd also take a Darcy. You know, just combination of all three of those guys, you know, that'd be the perfect guy. Yeah. Glad I gave this book a chance. That one's a tough one. Okay, so I'm a slow reader, which I will say, I claim being a slow reader because it takes me forever to get through books. But I'm glad I gave The Hobbit a chance. I was very shy about reading The Hobbit because I heard of J.R. Tolkien's descriptiveness and how he was so detailed, and it just took a lot of experienced readers time and to dissect and dive into his books. I was really shy about reading that, but I am so glad I read it, even though it took me a whole year to read it. Like, I'm glad I gave it a chance. Yeah. A lot of my friends are like, why did it take you a whole year? And it was because I would read a page or two, and I'd sit it down, and then a month would go by, and yeah. My reading process it kills some of my friends how I read. I really enjoyed J.R. Tolkien's Hobbit because of the descriptiveness. Like, it really helped in the world building. It was great. I loved it. Hidden Gem book. I mentioned this book in my new to booktube tag. This is a hidden gem. Okay? So it's got tons of stories in it. And they're stories that are adapted into new versions and built upon, but the original stories where people get all their inspiration from, those are the gems. Okay? That start with things like this. Okay. Important moment in your reading life. So with this one, back in school, I didn't really force myself to read extra books outside of schoolwork. I didn't start reading for pleasure until I was a junior in high school. My mom was reading a Janet Ivanovich book, and I was sitting with her for some reason, and I just started reading the page that she was on, and I was like, that's kind of funny. And she was like, well, we've got all kinds of her books sitting over there in that bookshelf. You go pick one out. And I picked up her book called Metro Girl. Metro Girl was not the Stephanie Plum series, but it was it was another kind of investigative kind of series, and it was hilarious. I would take this book to school, and I'd be sitting in, like, after I did my classwork for the day, I would break out my book, and of course my teacher thought I was weird. At first glance, that book looked like a kind of like self-help, self-discovery kind of book, but I started laughing out loud one day in the middle of class, and she was like, Leslie, what are you reading? And I was like, it's a book? And she was like, okay, well, what kind of book? And I was like, and it's an investigation book. It's really funny. This character, she's like, blah, 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 and my teacher, she was like, okay, that makes sense now. But yeah, once I found the kinds of books that I liked, my reading took a whole new turn, and I started enjoying reading. It was amazing. So that was the most important moment in my reading life. just finished reading. I just finished reading the Llewellyn Mabon book by Carl. His last name starts with an F. I'm sorry, I'm terrible with names. But it was talking about old traditions, new traditions, correspondences, things that you would do for the holiday. Yeah, those kinds of things. Kinds of books you won't read. There's not really a whole lot that I won't read. It's just a fact of it's more difficult for me to read certain books. But I would give anything a try, really, unless I'm just like totally off put by it. Longest book you've read? The Chronicles of Narnia, like as a singular book, not 6 different books, is the longest book I've read. The Outlander books are the longest book I've read. Okay, so 880 pages for The Drums of Autumn, which is going to be the longest book I've read, because I'm really shy about reading books that are like super big because of how long it takes me to read. So I try to keep books small, kind of like this one, like novella size. Major book hangover because of Fortuna Sworn series. Right now I'm at that point where like I've pre-ordered the next book and I'm waiting for it to drop into my Kindle, and as soon as I finished reading the second one, I was like, I need the third book to be out right now. But yeah, I have to wait until December, so. Number of bookcases you own. Okay, so this one's a little difficult because these are bookcases, but there's only 1 or 2 sections that have books in them. So what I have in terms of bookcases, I've got 4 bookcases. Just because I have 4 bookcases doesn't mean I have it full of books. But here's the way that you can see my books. Goodreads. Every book I own is either digital or physical, is scanned into my Bookreads. Or Goodreads. I've got books in my closet upstairs in those they're not bank boxes, but they're the size of bank boxes and they're plastic. They're like plastic crates that you get during like the beginning of school. But I've got my books stored in those at the moment because of the fact that I know we're going to be moving soon and I've got them all packed up, ready to go. One book you've read multiple times. I have not read a single book more than once. I've got too many to-be-read books to constitute reading a book a second time. But there are books that I have set to the side that I know that when I get the chance, I will come back to them. Preferred place to read. I have a little reading chair right over here, and I've got a side table that's got a lamp on it, and that's where I like to sit to read. It's a kind of a barrel club chair, you know. It's super cozy. And my lamp is like right at the right height and comes over my right shoulder. It's the perfect reading spot. Yeah, that's my spot. Quote that inspires you, gives you the feels. Blessed are the curious, for they have adventures and live 1,000 lives. That is actually a combination of 2 quotes, but that is what is tattooed on my right shoulder, and it's what I live by. Reading regret. Not starting sooner. I mean, really, not starting reading for pleasure sooner than high school. So, series you started but need to finish. That's so many. Okay, so the Fortuna Sworn series, but that's just because the book isn't out yet that I haven't finished it. The Outlander series, I am really working on finishing it. I know this is going to be blasphemy. I have only read the first 2 books of the Harry Potter series. I know. Sorry. Don't bite me down or smite me down. I did not read the Harry Potter books as they came out back whenever I was in middle school and high school. There was just too much hype around it for me, and so I was just off-put by all the hype, you know. And whenever my friends would be like, I'm waiting on the next book to come out, I never understood their anticipation until I read Fortuna Sworn, okay? And now I'm just like, okay, I get it. But I need to read those, and then I need to read the Midnight Sun to finish up the Twilight series. Yeah, I did read the Twilight series, and I threw the book across the room as soon as it finished, and now I'm going to force myself to read Midnight Sun to finish up the series. And then I guess I would say that I need to finish the Janet Ivanovich Stephanie Plum series, because I'm only up to book 5 and she's got 26. 3 of your all-time favorite books. Jane Austen's 7 novels. Well, in particular, Pride and Prejudice. Pride and Prejudice is a classic. It's timeless. Fortuna Sworn has actually done a lot for me in terms of what I'm reading, because I used to always say to people, you need to read the Outlander series. If you haven't read it, you need to. If you've watched the show, you need to read the book, because the show leaves out so much. And now I'm just like, okay, Outlander's still one of my favorites, but Fortuna's Sworn has just, like, you know, kind of taken over my top favorites. So, and book number 3 would be Outlander. Outlander is still in the top 3. It's just, you know, down a peg for right now. But, yeah. Pride and Prejudice, I don't think anything can knock Pride and Prejudice out of spot 1. I mean, just saying. Okay, so my stepmom and I have these lists of books that we are telling ourselves that we need to read before we die. Is how I'm going to put it. So they call it the Well-Rounded Readers List, and it reminds me of the Riley Gilmore reading list, is what it reminds me of. I was actually able to mark another book off of the list this year, because I read the Chronicles of Narnia, which is on here. But there are things on here like The Crucible and To Kill a Mockingbird, Of Mice and Men, you know, those regular books that we all read. Ooh, I can mark off Pride and Prejudice. I'm making some progress here. But there's also this section. Okay, so there's 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th here. And then there's this list that is all classics. I'm working on getting through these, okay? I'm actually going to put them in like a random number selector and do that as one of my required reads this next year, each month, until I get them all read. I need to get them done. I need to get my list done. Unapologetic fangirl of. This is kind of a tie. Fortuna Sworn, Outlander, and then my top 3. I'm the fangirl of those. But very excited for this release more than any others. My goodness. Sam Heughan and something McTavish are coming out with a book in November called Clanlands. Oh my goodness, I'm so excited about this one. It is about the history of Scotland in between filming for Outlander. Sam Heughan went on a road trip with McTavish. McTavish played Dougal. I cannot remember his first name. I'm terrible with names, okay? So if I can remember first and second name, like, I'm really a fangirl, okay? They went on a road trip around Scotland and they wrote this book together. I'm anticipating the release of this book. It will be out November 3rd, and it's marked in my calendar, and it should be on my doorstep November 3rd. Unless they decide to push back my delivery date, and then I will be upset. It better be here on November 3rd. Worst habit. I make lists, and then I take forever to complete them. I'll stop a book halfway through. I'll start a book, and then halfway through, I'll put it down, and it'll be months before I pick it back up. That is probably my worst habit. And it drives people insane. Because they'll be like, oh, how's the book going? It's like, oh, I haven't picked it up in a couple of weeks or a month. And they're like, well, when are you going to finish it? X marks the spot, the 27th book on your shelf. But I really don't want to go upstairs. We'll go to my Goodreads. Okay, so whenever you go to my books, it does this like bookshelf thing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 27 is this one right here. Dictionary of Words, Roots, and Combining Forms. That is a book I got from my grandmother when she passed away. It was actually in her ancestry section whenever we went through her bookshelves. And my stepmom was like, I have a lot of these ancestry books already, so you go ahead and take them. Yeah. That was one of her books. Your latest purchase. This is my latest purchase, Sticks, Stones, Roots, and Bones. It is a spirituality book that is based in hoodoo. Next and last prompt is Z Snatcher, last book that kept you up way too late. Restless Slumber. I stayed up until 4:30 in the morning finishing that book, and I had to be at work at 9 o'clock. I didn't fall asleep until after 5. I was very tired the next morning, and my boss was like, are you okay? And I was like, I'm just drained. That was a long day. Okay, so that was all of the prompts, A to Z, and I will link in the description description box below the original post if you guys want to go check it out. You will also find a link to my Facebook and Instagram, my Goodreads, and also the link to my website that's going to be coming soon for candles. If you have any questions, comments, queries, or concerns, leave your comments in the comment section below, and I'll get back to you as soon as possible. But that's it for me today, guys. I will catch you in the next video. Peace, love, luck, and joy. Bye!
Ireland, I am coming home. I can see rolling fields of green and fences made of stone. I am reaching out. Won't you tell